This bonus episode of New Politics was released on the 12th of December, 2025, and produced on the lands of the Wangal and Gadigal people.
Thank you very much. It's great to have the Prime Minister of Australia. A lot of friends over there, and this is one of them right here. We work together very much on rare earths, critical minerals, and lots of other things.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for the invitation here. We are great friends and we're great allies. Today's agreement on critical minerals and rare earths is just taking it to the next level. I think that today will be seen as a really significant day in our relationship. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much, Anthony. It's an honour to sign this, and we'll do it now.
The United States is still the most powerful country on earth economically and militarily, but institutionally, David, it's starting to fall apart. Now, Donald Trump returned to the White House and his behaviour is resembling the behaviour of a tin pot dictator, where everything is sliding further into decay. He introduced sweeping tariffs on almost everything that moves throughout the world, including Australian exports and on some penguins living on Heard Island. There were mass deportations and travel bans that were placed on many citizens from around the world, and civil and human rights were rolled right back. And these are the big issues and existential issues that Australia does need to at least discuss and sort out. And there is that issue about how does Australia protect itself from a US president who changes his mind pretty much every minute of the day and then goes back to the previous decision, and whether we should be building stronger links with Asia, Europe and the global south. But we ended up getting none of that. The big focus this year was on whether Anthony Albanese was going to get a meeting with Donald Trump and when it was going to happen, and it was like some weird celebrity dating game. And when the meeting finally did happen in October, well, it was treated like the big diplomatic triumph. There were huge smiles and handshakes in the Oval Office. There was a deal on rare minerals, more very kind words about the AUKUS deal. And David, there's no question that there's a great benefit in having a strong relationship with the United States, but all of these deals are in the favour of the United States, not in Australia's interests. And we never got around to asking those questions about Australia's interests and how this favours Australia in a meaningful way. And at the very moment that the United States democracy is virtually being destroyed and looking in on itself, Australia just doubled down on the alliance instead of using this issue of the new president to diversify its interests and focus ourselves towards our own interests and work out a genuinely independent foreign policy.
The relationship between the United States and Australia has always been complex in its one-sidedness. We still don't know why a big chunk of land in the middle of nowhere is off limits to Australians, Pine Gap. We can point to things where Australia could have got a much better deal and didn't. And even with a weak and incompetent president in Trump, a man who may have put his name on a book called The Art of the Deal. He didn't write it, but he put his name on. The guy who did write it actually doubts whether Trump has read it at all.
Well, Trump's a weak and incompetent leader, but he's in a very powerful position, and I think that's what the problem is.
And yeah, Australia hasn't really capitalised on that. Weakness and incompetence could be used to our advantage. But for whatever reason, and for all our criticisms of Anthony Albanese, he's not a stupid man. He's not an unintelligent guy. He's not an inexperienced politician. He's made enemies within the party, of course, which all leaders do because of his hard-nosed approaches to some things. You don't get to be leader of any political party, let alone the Australian Labor Party, by being soft and accommodating all the time. So it's quite odd why we came out with America, unless the idea was to make Trump think, unless there's other things happening down the track and it lets Trump think he's done the good deal and it keeps us in good stead. So when the next thing comes in, which is hopefully bigger, but there's no evidence of anything like that happening, Of course, the whole idea that Albanese couldn't get a meeting with Trump was one of the biggest beat-ups. It was almost as silly as the New Order T-shirt he wore off the plane. The American president doesn't need to speak to every single world leader. And I'd argue that you're better a bit distant from him anyway. You don't want him to be your first port of call, because what's that say about you? He likes yes men, and he likes people with lower intelligence. And I say yes men, he prefers men. Look at the way he treats his women cabinet members. Unless they are completely subservient, he's not interested in them.
And Australia likes to pretend that it's got these sovereign choices in foreign policy. But you mentioned Pine Gap before. But when you do look at Pine Gap and this critical minerals deal with the United States, well, you have to ask, well, how free are these choices that we're making anyway? And I'd say that they're probably not. But Pine Gap, it is that top secret satellite spying and intelligence base in the middle of Australia, and that helps run United States military operations all across the world. And there's no real public debate about any of this. And the critical minerals deal with the United States, that's billions of dollars in joint investment, with Australia supplying the rare minerals and critical minerals that the US needs for weapons systems, for batteries and high-tech manufacturing. Now, all of this might be great for the alliance, but is it a good deal for Australia? And I don't think that it is. And I think that good diplomacy would mean using Pine Gap and all of those rare mineral reserves as some kind of leverage with the United States. And maybe I'm being a little bit naive about this, David, because Donald Trump is not really a person that you can negotiate with in your favour. And maybe it's the case of making these deals in whichever way you can, shutting up the United States because they've got what they want with the rare minerals. And that then allows you to have a healthy relationship that you've got with China, because they are your biggest trading partner. So yeah, it's a strange issue, this one. So this might be a case where this is as good as it will get within this relationship with the United States, and it's all totally one-sided in US's favour. And it might be a case where this is as good as it gets because essentially there is no other option for us.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I'll be fair, I would say that if it was a Morrison government. I had very little good to say about the Morrison government, but you're right.
Although we might sway the conversation in a slightly different way.
Yeah, we probably would. But there's only so much you can get in foreign affairs. The shadow foreign affairs minister doesn't criticise the foreign affairs minister, but works with them to basically be, if they're really good, a soundboard. But usually it's just, this is what happened, you can go back to your party room and report this, because there's too much going on. Of course, the Liberal Party isn't going to criticise a deal with the United States anyway. Now, my main problem is the closeness, or the perceived closeness to the United States, which that type of thing might hurt, maybe not your relations with China, say, because the Chinese government is a very smart operation and they know what's going on. But it might hurt your relationships with Korea or Indonesia or the smaller countries who know what's going on too, but suddenly aren't sure if you would support them in a contretemps with Trump. And those are the countries we need to be cultivating as close allies, which we have been admittedly with Indonesia. And of course, they have their internal politics. Indonesian governments on occasion do come out anti-West and pointing to Australia as a tool of the West. Yeah, I'd have thought that not just keeping China happy, but keeping all of our Southeast Asian allies happy would have been a part of it. And again, maybe there's people saying, yeah, don't worry about this. This is what we've done. We're keeping in good with China. We want to keep in good with you. Perhaps that has happened behind closed doors. Who knows? It can be a tricky thing, foreign affairs. And you can analyse it and have all the right evidence and be totally wrong.
This is New Politics, available through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Audible and YouTube, and also available to support at Patreon, Substack, and at our website, newpolitics.com.au. The rest of the full episode of New Politics will continue tomorrow morning. Thanks for listening in.